Hey, what is happening, everybody? How are you doing? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel, and today we're doing something a little bit different than what the past several months worth of videos have been here on Rule of Two Review, because things have been a little bit kooky and strange, especially for myself as a channel that mostly discusses and covers Nintendo. Obviously, I'm talking about all things gaming, PlayStation, Xbox, and all that, but really, we obviously focus on Nintendo here. And obviously, since I'm sure we're all very familiar with Nintendo and how in 2020, it hasn't been the most normal or exciting time to be talking about Nintendo or even just to be a Nintendo fan. And because of that, a lot of my coverage and my discussions and my videos have been a little bit on the more, I don't want to say dramatic side, but obviously things just haven't been great. And I think that a lot of my videos and my discussions have kind of reflected that, especially over the course of the past couple of months. Is August Nintendo's last chance for new game info? So has Nintendo actually given up on 2020? Are Nintendo unaware of some fans' reactions? Is it finally time for a Nintendo Direct? Could Nintendo Directs be changing forever? Metroid Prime 4 confirmed to still exist thanks to a Retro Studios job post. Actually, that sounds pretty good. Think I might watch that. Anywho, obviously I'm just kidding and playing around there, but there is some truth to it, to be fair, because these conversations have been such a way the past couple of weeks and months and all year with Nintendo that I wanted to take a break, and I wanted to do something a little bit more normal, a little bit more chill and fun and relaxed. And so I've decided to rank my personal top 20 all-time Nintendo Wii games. Now you might be asking me why I chose the Nintendo Wii of all consoles to make this list for, and to tell you the truth, I don't really know. Actually, it's totally random. It's just the console that I felt like I wanted to discuss and rank because it seemed like fun, and it's not my very, very favorite of Nintendo consoles. In fact, it's kind of lower on the list, but it's still an amazing console, and it had a very great library. There's a ton of variety to the games that I'll be discussing. Not so much in the top 10, to be fair, but across the entire 20 games, there's a lot of variety. And so, I don't know, I just thought it would be fun. Now, games that are collections or ports will not qualify for this list, and I will not be discussing. So a game like Resident Evil 4 Wii Edition will not make it on this list. And that does unfortunately mean that the Metroid Prime trilogy also does not count, because it would be a cheat win. It would just be my number one by default, and that would be no fun because they're 3 individual games put together. 2 of them are ports from the prior console. It just didn't make sense. So we're talking just Nintendo Wii releases, and with that being said, I'm going to stop blabbing and we're just going to get on with the list. We're going to quickfire numbers 20 through 11, and here we go. At number 20 is SSX Blur. At number 19 is Fragile Dreams, Farewell Ruins of the Moon. At number 18 is The Conduit 2. At number 17 is Pandora's Tower. At number 16 is The Last Story. At number 15 is Mad World. At number 14 is Red Steel 2. At number 13 is Muramasa the Demon Blade. At number 12 is Xenoblade Chronicles, and at number 11 is Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Tons of great games there, and a couple of games I would have loved to include in my top 10, but I realized there are so many great games that were Nintendo Wii releases. Again, most of them Nintendo first party. There's a couple of franchises you're going to be expecting here that honestly I couldn't put those games in the top 10, but make no mistake, I love all of those titles. So let's jump in here with number 10, and for myself at number 10 is going to be Donkey Kong Country Returns. And I really, really love this game. In fact, I'm probably one of the few people that actually prefers Donkey Kong Country Returns to Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze on the Wii U. But honestly, this game was such a surprise coming from Retro Studios. All of a sudden, a new Donkey Kong game, and on top of that, it was a Donkey Kong Country game. I mean, come on, that was just so cool. Loved the visuals and the graphics. It was a beautiful standard definition Wii release. I cannot say enough about how unbelievable and fun this game is. And to me, Tropical Freeze is the kind of game that's so good because this game laid the groundwork first on the Nintendo Wii. I love it to death, and so it comes in at number 10. At number 9 is going to be a surprise, and it is Silent Hill Shattered Memories. And I think because I'm such a massive, massive, massive fan of the Silent Hill franchise and a massive fan of the horror genre, both in terms of movies, books, and video games, that this game was always going to make it high on my list. And this is a game that was a reimagining of the original classic Silent Hill, and I think that Shattered Memories honestly doesn't get enough recognition for how incredible it is, especially as a Wii title that took fantastic use of both the Wii Remote in terms of the pointer controls for the flashlight, and also the use of the speaker on the Wii Remote for using the cell phone and making phone calls and hearing weird, creepy things called into you that he uses. And I don't know. I mean, I think this game is so underappreciated. Gorgeous graphics on the Wii. The motion controls for shaking the monsters and stuff off were awkward, but I thought that the atmosphere and just the whole ambience of the game was incredible. It was very creepy, very eerie, great storytelling, and just an awesome Silent Hill game. I don't know, I think this game is a masterpiece, one of my favorite Silent Hill games, and also number 9 on my list of Wii games. At number 8 is No More Heroes 2 Desperate Struggle, and what can I say? You guys know I am a huge No More Heroes fan. I am a huge Travis Touchdown fan, and I think that both No More Heroes games are absolutely incredible and some of my favorite games I've ever played. No More Heroes 2 was interesting because it went from the open world of the original game into something that was more of a map level-based system where you're still in Santa Destroy with this overview map of the city, but instead of just wandering around and finding your missions and places to go, you actually just selected your minigame training stuff in between your main missions, and then you would select the mission that became fighting another assassin. I thought that it basically took everything about the first game and just did more of it. It also improved the combat by making it feel a little bit better and also giving you the ability to wield 2 beam katanas. There was more variety to both the assassins and the beam katanas in the combat. And I also just love the story, and I love Travis. The ending was very disappointing compared to the first one. It's probably the only negative I have to say about No More Heroes 2 is I think the ending kind of sucks. But with that other exception, it's just an amazing game. And so for me, it comes in at number 8. At number 7 will be a divisive choice, but if you know me, it is not a surprise, and I will defend this choice to the death. And it is Metroid Other M. That's right, Other M. I don't care what the haters say. I love this game. Is it flawed? Yes. Did they make some weird choices that I wish they didn't make? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, did this come together to be a great action exploration Metroid Samus adventure that did take some interesting twists to the formula? 100% without question. Keep in mind, you guys know me as the biggest Metroid fan on the planet, and I'm not ranking this game at number 1, 2, or even 3. It's coming in at number 7, so clearly I'm willing to acknowledge some of the faults it has, but in no way do the faults hold this down from being a really good Metroid adventure game. I loved their choice with the bottle ship and all of the holograms changing the environments and how Samus interacts with them. And while I think that maybe there was too big of a cast of characters, I do think that there was a great attempt to create some NPCs that added some depth to Samus and her background. I also liked the exploration of Samus as a person and as a woman and her history with the GFS. I thought that was very cool, understanding why she left them and how she became the lone bounty hunter we know her to be today. Obviously, choices with her and Malkovich, Adam Malkovich, were very strange and maybe not the best. I liked the backstory of the two, but I think the choices of the present tense weren't really all that great as far as those two. And yeah, it's weird that she was maybe a little bit too afraid to fight Ridley in that initial battle. I get it. I don't love that either. But everything else was just so cool, man. I love this game. I think the visuals and the action and the gameplay were just a blast. And so, I know it's divisive, but for me, it comes in at number 7. At number 6 is a game that might be controversial for a different reason, because I think people will yell at me for including it so low. Quote-unquote low. But I stand by this, and for me, number 6 is Super Mario Galaxy 2. And, you know, what do you say about Super Mario Galaxy 2? It's a great Mario game. It's an incredible sequel to the masterful original Super Mario Galaxy. And, you know, one of the few things they did that I didn't like, and you guys have maybe heard me say this before, is how they went from the hub system of the observatory to the map system. You know, trying to harken back to some of the classic Mario games, like Mario 3 and Super Mario World, and the new Super Mario games, and like, I get it. I didn't like outright hate it, but I didn't think it was as interesting as having like a hub that some of the previous games did. But at the end of the day, that stuff doesn't even really matter when you just look at the sheer variety of gameplay. They did everything that the original game did, and they just continued to do more of the same. And yes, there were some additions like the rock suit and the cloud suit that were really, really awesome, and I really enjoyed those, absolutely. And it just kind of helps make Super Mario Galaxy 2 an incredible platforming video game experience. And it's not just because it's a Mario game that it's heralded as a great game. It truly is a great game. It doesn't matter who you're playing as. This just happens to showcase why Mario games are really, you know, borderline objectively the best platforming games in the video game industry. I mean, Nintendo just puts magic into these games, and so what can I say? I love Super Mario Galaxy 2, and I proudly put it here at number 6. And at number 5, for myself, is the original No More Heroes. That's right, I like the original No More Heroes over No More Heroes 2. Even though Desperate Struggle did improve on a couple of things, the graphics and the gameplay and the variety of combat are a little bit better in No More Heroes 2. I won't disagree with that. But I am somebody who's always a sucker for my own nostalgia, and I'm also a sucker for my first experiences in a lot of game franchise. It's not always the case with those games. Like Resident Evil 2, for example, I liked over the original Resident Evil release. But with something like No More Heroes, I really am so attached to when that game came out brand new in 2007 on the Nintendo Wii, and I was like, what is this really cool, mature, gory, bloody, violent, like nerdy lightsaber combat game with this crazy character named Travis Touchdown? What is this? And as I played it for the first time, it blew my mind. I loved the humor, I fell in love with Travis Touchdown, I enjoyed running around Santa Destroy, and then of course there's the insane and over-the-top and super quirky assassin fights. And for me, it was either the 5th or 6th assassin fight, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't played it, where they build up this crazy battle with this really kooky assassin character, and then something insane happens that changes the way that fight happens. And to me, that was when I officially went from this game is really cool to blowing my mind. I thought it was so great. Travis's reaction to how that battle happens afterwards, the whole cinematic and where the game goes from there, I was like, this is amazing. I've never seen or played anything like what this game is. Again, we have to go back to 2007. This, you know, in today's climate, it wouldn't have the same impact as it did when it came out. That's part of what made it special. And then you have the ending. Whereas No More Heroes 2's ending did disappoint me and left me wanting more, I should say left me unsatisfied. The true final ending to the first No More Heroes game gave me chills. It was so exhilarating and exciting and fun and crazy. I mean, I leapt from my couch screaming with joy when it was over. I was like, that is just amazing. I can't believe what I just saw happen. I was so excited. And so, you know, the gushing can end here, and I'll just tell you guys, I love No More Heroes. I love it. And so for me, it comes in at number 5 on my list of Wii games. And at number 4 is The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. And I know some people will talk about how this game was a GameCube game and a Wii game, and maybe some people feel like it should be disqualified, but you know what? I just don't see it that way. This was the first game 99% of us bought for our Nintendo Wii, especially those of us that bought it at launch. This was the game we were excited to take our Wiis home for, and it totally delivered. You know, after time, I will admit, I've looked at it a little bit less favorably, like it's fallen lower on my list of Zelda games than maybe when it was brand new, but that's okay. That doesn't have to mean that the game itself is bad, because it truly is an incredible Zelda experience. I loved this vision of Hyrule. I loved the dungeon crawling and the action and the motion control sword combat and gameplay, and using the bow and arrow and the slingshot with the pointer was like so mind-blowing and revolutionary at the time. I loved the story. I loved, you know, Zelda and everything happening with her in the Twilight Realm. I loved Zant as a villain. And of course, I loved Midna. Midna is such an amazing X-Factor to Twilight Princess and one of the best parts to all of Zelda history. And Midna really exists within the Twilight Princess game. That's where she came from, and it's where the majority of her time is spent. And she's amazing, and everything else about this game is just fantastic. It's a huge adventure, and a great way to experience a brand new next-generation motion control console when it released in 2006. And so, it may not be everybody's favorite Zelda game, and it does have a couple of annoying parts to it, absolutely, But for me, I think it's amazing. It's borderline a masterpiece. So on my list of Wii games, I personally put it at number 4. And as we crack into the top 3, there are not a lot of surprises left. And for myself, at number 3 is the original Super Mario Galaxy. Similar to the No More Heroes situation, for me, Super Mario Galaxy, while it might be inferior on paper in many ways to Super Mario Galaxy 2, I kind of just don't care because I'm so much more attached to how this game felt when it was brand new. Because this was our first experience and our first foray into space and gravity gameplay with Mario. And the original Super Mario Galaxy was more revolutionary and groundbreaking than Super Mario Galaxy 2 after, which felt more like a $60 expansion to Super Mario Galaxy. It was a worthy $60 expansion, don't get me wrong. I don't think Galaxy 2 is a ripoff. It was worth it. But I think Galaxy 1 exists in this bubble of being so amazing and revolutionary when it came out that's why I prefer it. And it's also why, spoiler alert for my Mario video, it's why I put it as my number 1 favorite Super Mario game of all time. Because just, oh my god. I mean, the graphics alone in 2007 on the standard definition Wii, when we were starting to be wowed by seeing games like Uncharted on the PlayStation 3, or Halo in HD on the 360, and Gears of War, which really was a game changer in HD at the time. But here comes Mario Galaxy standard definition, and it looked in many ways just as good or even better as some of those games, at least in terms of art direction. And the gameplay was incredible. All of the gravity and the planet hopping was just, oh my god, you guys. And they had so many amazing gameplay styles using the Wii Remote, which again was very new in 2007. Still, it was only a year old, so we were still adjusting to the things that the Wii Remote and the Nunchuck could do. And Super Mario Galaxy was the perfect showcase for that. Much, much better than even Wii Sports, which came with the Wii, at least in my opinion. And so, you know, what do you say about Mario Galaxy? Everyone knows how incredible it is. It's one of the best reviewed games of all time, and for good reason. So for me, it's my favorite Mario game, and it's also my 3rd favorite Wii game. And at number 2, obviously going to be another divisive choice, but you guys have heard me gush about this game before, and I will continue to do it on this video today. It is The Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword. Yes, I know, Skyward Sword, the game that so many people do not enjoy or even think is bad, just because they didn't like the motion controls. And you know what? I'll never take that away from anybody. I acknowledge, I mean, the game clearly is 100%, I mean, more, it's 110% reliant on the motion controls and the Wii Motion Plus. That is the very core to the game. And if you either don't like motion controls or you didn't like how Skyward Sword used motion controls, obviously it's going to hurt the game experience, and I can't take that away from you. All I can say is, for me, I didn't have a problem with the motion controls. I really enjoyed the motion controls. They achieved the effect that Nintendo was going for, and so it only enhanced the experience for me. Also, we have to talk about the story, which I've raved about many times before. While I think maybe the events of the story aren't quite the best in the Zelda franchise, I would probably give that to the Ocarina of Time. As far as the execution of the story and the way it's told, I think that this is the best. And the story itself, even independent from that, is still amazing. I mean, they are still playing with time travel a little bit in this game, and I think it's so fantastic. I loved the Skyloft and Hyrule Below situation. I thought that Girahim was an incredible villain. The final battle to this game, as I tweeted about recently, was mind-blowing and so very satisfying. And as I've also said, this game's incarnation of Zelda the character, she is so fantastic. She has so much charisma and vibrancy. She's a lot of fun. She's also very powerful. She stands on her own and has agency within the game. So she's not the typical damsel in distress Zelda we've seen in some of the older games, where Zelda, to be fair, really didn't even have any like impact on those games other than being in the title, to be fair. But I don't know. I mean, when you look at the more modern versions of Zelda, like in The Wind Waker, my favorite Zelda of all time, and, you know, the Ocarina of Time and all of that, Twilight Princess, I don't know. I just think that this version of Zelda is the best. Even over Breath of the Wild Zelda, who I actually kind of don't really love too much. I know people will yell at me for that. But the point is, to me, Skyward Sword, it's wonderful. I think the dungeons are fantastic. Not the best in the series. Some people think that this is the best example of dungeons in Zelda, and I actually wouldn't call Skyward Sword's dungeons the best. But are they very, very, very good? Yes, they are. And again, the whole game just takes advantage of the great motion controls and the Wii Motion Plus. And so, I just love Skyward Sword, you guys. It's such an epic adventure. I love flying through the sky. I love traversing Hyrule below. I love the time traveling mechanic and just everything happening in the story. And I love Zelda in this game. I don't know. I just think it's incredible. It was a wonderful swan song for the Nintendo Wii when it came out in 2011. And so on my list, it comes in as my second favorite all-time Nintendo Wii game. And this, of course, brings us to number 1, and there is no doubt in my mind you all know what my all-time favorite Nintendo Wii game is. And it is Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. How could it not be the third Metroid Prime game? With the original Metroid Prime being my all-time favorite video game ever made, and Metroid Prime 2 being not too far behind it, I was always going to be very excited about Metroid Prime 3, and it absolutely delivered. And I will say, while it's my least favorite of the 3 Prime console games, I still think this game is an absolute masterpiece. I've talked before about how I prefer Primes 1 and 2 having us on only one planet and one location over Prime 3 giving us multiple planets to go to. And that is true. I do prefer that, but I still think it was very, very exciting to have multiple planets to go to and to legitimately use Samus's gunship to fly around the galaxy and to go to different locations, not only planets, but also to, a downed derelict ship that happens in the middle of the game that I don't want to spoil if you haven't played it. And so they took great advantage of that. Not only that, but you also get to use Samus's gunship to move big items around within the world, and you get to use it to call in bombing runs for certain specific points where you need to blow something up. And it was just a really cool addition to what you could do in the first 2 Prime games. I still love the 3 different planets, the main 3 planets that you go to in this game. There was a ton of variety to the locations because of it. Obviously, Skytown on Elysia is a highlight within the franchise, and I stand by that. I think it's an amazing place. It's an amazing location. I like that they brought back the weapon stacking from Super Metroid, where instead of changing between your beams, you have one beam throughout the game, but you upgrade it and you add to its abilities. And as you have one beam with an ability, you get a new beam with an ability, you get another new beam with an ability, and all of the abilities, they just stack on top of each other so that basically you can accomplish all beam abilities with just the one. And then there's the great nunchuck mechanic where you can use the nunchuck to use Samus's grappling hook or to grab onto things and pull them off. You're also using the Wii remote to put her arm cannon into things and turn things around and solve puzzles, and you're pulling levers. And yes, it was gimmicky motion stuff, but I actually really, really loved it. I thought it was a ton of fun. I think the story was great. It was a fantastic conclusion narratively to the overall Metroid Prime trilogy story and everything happening with the infusion of Phazon and the space pirates manipulating it. And then, of course, the Metroid Prime entity and Dark Samus. I will say they brought in the Aurora 313 unit as the final boss, possessed by Metroid Prime Dark Samus. And, not my favorite. I will say it's my least favorite of the final bosses in the trilogy, mostly because it was easy. It's not that it wasn't fun. It is actually a fun final boss, but it wasn't very difficult. Even on the veteran difficulty, if you play through it after you beat it, it's still not as difficult as the other bosses. I was very surprised how easy it was. But at the end of the day, it's an amazing adventure. It's a great game. The visuals are incredible. It's still the same gameplay. In fact, this is actually the one that introduced motion control gaming to Metroid Prime. And it was Nintendo showing, hey, this is why the Wii Remote and Nunchuck are great for a variety of games, including first person. You love those first 2 Metroid Prime games. Well, here's a third one taking full advantage of this new motion control console that we've come up with. And it was euphoric. It was so good that they took it and applied the same controls to the first 2 Metroid Prime games, and now so many fans only know the Metroid Prime games with the Wii Remote motion controls, and that all started with Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. And then there's, of course, last thing I'll say here, is the incredible aspect of having Samus herself continually become corrupted with Phazon. That's why the name Corruption is in the title, and I thought it was the first attempts of Nintendo really trying to humanize Samus, because to me, there's a couple of moments where, you beat a boss and you become more and more infected with Phazon every time. And there are moments where you really kind of see Samus be vulnerable. I especially think of the first battle with Moganar when you complete that and she starts to become corrupted with Phazon and she has to take her helmet off and she's vomiting up Phazon. It's a real part to the game that they show. The camera's backing away and you see her and her hair's out and she's throwing up Phazon and you're just like, oh my god, you feel terrible for her. And again, up until Other M, I know people hated how Other M did it, but until Other M, we had never seen them really try to humanize Samus and make her seem vulnerable at all until, in my opinion, Metroid Prime 3 Corruption. And I really, really loved that aspect. So all of this stuff is why I love Metroid Prime 3, and it's why, even as a Metroid superfan, I can say my absolute favorite Wii game of all time is Metroid Prime 3. And so, there you have it. Those are my top 20 Nintendo Wii games of all time. This was so much fun to do. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching this and hearing me discuss all of these games, especially a very exhaustive look into my top 10. This was also very hard to do, always difficult to rank your favorites of anything and put them in order, but that's part of the challenge and that's part of the fun. So, obviously, I want to hear you guys discuss what you think of my order and my top 20 games and how I listed and ranked them. And of course, I want to hear your own favorite games and what you think really made the Nintendo Wii shine, if in fact you even enjoyed the console in the first place, I guess. So this was a ton of fun. Thanks for watching again. I hope that you guys enjoyed. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of World of 2 Review, and I will catch you next time on another video.